Hello everyone, good morning to all of you. So in this video we'll be discussing about the NPP use cases. In last two videos we have discussed about the banking as a service and open banking scenario in Australia, and we discussed about CDR. We haven't discussed much about CDR. We'll be discussing that in our next video. We discussed about NPP, what is NPP, what changes it intended to bring in the Australian payment system, and different kind of APIs which will be bringing in the fold. Okay, so today we'll be discussing NPP use cases in a bit detail. I'll be discussing more about what NPP API specification framework talks about, what kind of APIs this specification framework talks about, and the various use cases in B2B and some B2C scenarios. Okay, now let's first discuss what are the APIs which NPP API specification talks about. The APIs are there are seven or eight APIs are there. So one of the important API is the Pay ID resolution, which in the terms of NPP API specification, it is called Get Account Service Provider by alias. It means that every bank needs to the bank who are going to be participant in a NPP ecosystem, they need to have this API through which they will be resolving Pay ID, which whether it is part of Pay ID to a certain account. Okay. Now there's another API which is normal, which is there almost part of all the open banking ecosystem. Is the submit payment or the payment initiation API through which the payment will be submitted. The important API, the unique API which NPP frameworks talks about is return payment as well as the refund. So if you see PSD2 or open banking or other open banking API specification, they doesn't talk much. They don't talk much about return payment. But in NPP, if you see, the first or second draft only talks about the return payment and refund, and that is very important because all the payment scenarios, refund and return, are the use cases which are one of the complex use cases where money needs to be returned to the payee's account. Okay, apart from that, there are other callback kind of APIs like payment event notification, where event notification needs to be sent to the customer or need to send to the party where payment has been initiated or payment has been credited to the account. There is a APIs for the cancellation, getting the cancellation status also once the payment has been cancelled. So now let's discuss one use case regarding the regarding payment, submit payment. So in this use case is a kind of suppose a corporate is making a payment to their supplier. So what are the APIs flows will be there? So the first corporate will call bank API. Bank will be exposing a API which will be get account services by alias. Using that API, corporate will get the resolve the pay ID. So pay ID will be used for making the payment, and once that corporate will just get to know whether that pay ID exists or not. Once it is certain that this pay ID is correct, corporate will use the submit payment APIs to submit the payment. Once the payment is submitted, the NPP infrastructure between the banks will do the credit transfer, notification, clearing and settlement. So when the payment is settled, so after that the payment will be credited to the payee's account, and then an payment event notification will be generated will be sent to the payees and payers both account. Once that event notification is done, so after that, payee and payer both can call API which will be to get the payment status. So there are total six API flow in this, and the API use will be get account services by alias, submit payment, payment event notification, and get payment details. So four or five API will be used in this whole process. Please, I would again emphasize that NPP doesn't expose any APIs. APIs are exposed by banks, and clearing and settlement between the banks are going to be NPP Fast Settlement Service (FSS), which is in fact one of the new thing which is coming into with the NPP. So this is one of the example where the payment will be submitted. Now let's check an example where return payment will happen. Okay, so cancel payment. So suppose a corporate want to request a payment which needs to be returned. How it is going to happen? So again, In this case, a wrong payment has been made, and corporate wants that payment needs to be returned. So in that case, the corporate will call a cancel payment API from the bank, and bank then do the cancel payment API will contain all the account details and everything where the payment needs to be returned and to which account payment needs to be refunded. So after that, the clearing and settlement will happen using between bank using NPP fast settlement service. Bank will notify to the customer from which account the amount is going to be refunded. Once the refund is done, bank will notify to customer, and again bank will also notify to the corporate that the account amount has been credited to their account after refund, and then an event notification will be generated. So this was about the cancel payment. Oh, sorry, this was about the corporate requesting a payment needs to be returned or a cancel payment. There is another important use case which we need to discuss here, is about return payment. So there is a cancel payment, like I have given some money to some other person and I want to get it returned. The other example is returning payment. Suppose I have received extra money and I want to return to the person who has given me the money. Okay, so in this case what will happen? In a bank account extra money has come, in my bank account extra money has come, or a corporate has received extra money and which it want to return to the customer, it will call a return payment API. So here, the earlier case it was a cancel payment API, here the return payment API will be called, and once the return payment API will call, the debit credit settlement will happen between bank using FSS, and the customer will be notified that okay, the extra money which you have given to the corporate, it has been refunded to your account. So it is not a submit payment. The submit payment API is different and return payment API is different. Okay, so there are many open banking use cases in a different geography where they use the submit payment API as a return payment, but here a different API has been used for the specific work, and after that payment event notification will be generated and payment event details can be checked by the corporate using the API. Okay, so event notification API is something which will be exposed by corporates, and the payment details APIs will be something which will be exposed by banks, where corporate will hit and check how much amount, whether the payment has been successful or not. So these are some example use cases which NPP talks about, and I would suggest you to go to the NPP website and check all the standard API standard, how it should be opened, what kind of fields will be there. All the standards have been given there, and using ISO 20022 standard. Okay, so I would recommend you to go and read there. In the next video we'll be discussing more about the CDR and how it is changing Australian payment banking scenario. One more thing, today just there's a news that in Australia regulatory authority has reprimanded bank that they are not going full forward with the NPP and the CDR because they feel that it will give more competition to them. So yes, these API based banking systems are meant to give more competition to banks as well as give more convenience to the consumer. We'll see a lot of action in this space in coming months and years. Till then, thanks for watching. Bye bye. See you.